Hey guys, Wayne here. This is my basics tutorial video for Hearts and Minds 3rd edition published by Compass Games. What I'm going to do is this video, I'm going to run through just the basics of the game to kind of get you started and then the sequence of play. I'm also going to have another video covering the solitaire bot, and then I'm going to have at least an extra video covering a playthrough so you can see the game in action. So let's start off and dive right into this one and talk about this game. So Hearts and Minds is, if you don't realize it yet, is a game about the Vietnam War. The two sides are going to be the red or communist side, and then the blue or allied side. The North Vietnamese communist side, the red side, and I'll probably just say red and blue, just because that's what the game uses that term a lot. So I'll use red. So the red side, which is North Vietnam, controls the NVA army, NVA, which is the North Vietnamese army, and the Viet Cong. And then the blue side is, everyone else is the U.S. soldiers, ARVN, which is Army basically of South Vietnam, Republic of Vietnam, which was South Vietnam. There's a couple Republic of Korea units. There's international force, like a UN force, but it's primarily going to be U.S. and ARVN. There's also some action in Laos and Cambodia, which you'll have the government forces of Laos, government of Cambodia, which are both controlled by the blue player, and then there are rebels in Laos and rebels in Cambodia controlled by the red player. And those interplay depending on the year. Now the point of the game is you want to build up either doves if you're the red player or hawks if you're the blue player. At the end of each year, you check for auto victory, or if it's the end of a scenario, or multiple years, or if you only play 1 year, then you compare, which I believe I have the chart right here. Take a look at it. So victory goals right here. Go ahead and you can look. Depending on the year, you might look, and negatives are hawks, positives are doves. So there's a track over here on the board, which you keep track of them. So say if you played 65 to 66, at the end of 1966, you would look and say, what's my year-end goal? -3. What that means is if you have -3 hawks or more, so -3, -4, -5, blue player is going to win. If you have -2 or more doves, so -2, well, it'll be -2 hawks, -1 hawks, 0 hawk, 1 is dove, 2 is dove, etc., then the red player would win. Now, how do you do that, you may ask? Well, what you're trying to do, you have kind of two different goals here, obviously. North Vietnamese player, you're marching your guys down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. You have Viet Cong that have already been seeded throughout the map. You're going to have your NVA troops marching, and you're going to enter all over the place. And what you're going to try to do is first of all, cause casualties, especially against U.S. units, the blue ones. ARVN are green, U.S. are blue, and we'll look at the units in a second. You want to cause as many casualties as you can, because that's going to hurt the war effort for the South, for the blue player. And you also want to take control, political control it's called, of provinces with red flags. The provinces by default in South Vietnam are controlled by the blue player. It is South Vietnam. You see a blue flag here. That means they're pacified. That doesn't indicate control because they control all provinces that don't have a red flag. So the red player comes down. They're putting out red flags. They're massing their troops. They're inflicting casualties. They're trying to cause doves, trying to basically build up doves or the peace movement, trying to build that up so at the end of the year, that's how they win. The blue player loses. The blue player, obviously, you're trying to do the opposite, right? You're trying to secure South Vietnam. So you're trying to get rid of these red flags. You're trying to, which involves, like I said, a political control of a province. You're trying to reduce your casualties as well. So as you move out and you maneuver your forces, you may have stronger armies overall. Most of the games that I've played, I'm pretty sure I basically always had stronger armies available. The problem is, though, for you as the blue player, is if you use those big armies all the time and you really use your forces, you're going to suffer a lot of casualties, and that's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you at the end of the game when you go and you look at things like how many U.S. forces do you have in the body count box, which you guys can, oops, I need to bump the camera there, sorry. You can see right on the left side of your screen here, body count box. Let's look a little bit, actually, kind of move the camera a little bit. You can see I have some forces in there now because I just finished playing a game. Well, if you have a lot of blue U.S. units in there, it's not going to be good. If you have a lot of ARVN, it's not going to be good because you're going to look at that ARVN, how many ARVN casualties you have versus how many provinces you have pacified, And if you have more losses than pacified, you got to worry there might be a coup. I'm not going to dig into all the details of every rule, but that means there might be a coup in South Vietnam, which if there is a coup, oh, it's bad. It costs you doves go on the board, which are bad for you as the blue player, good for the red. Your forces are all your Arvin forces, anyone that is a veteran unit gets switched back to untried. It's bad overall. So, point is, be careful while removing these provinces here, the flags on them. So like I said, that's the gist of the victory, right? How to win for each side. Let's kind of dig in how you actually play now. So following the sequence of play, the first turn, you skip it the first turn, but the first thing you do would be reinforcements phase. Now, on the map down here, it has all kinds of good charts, and of course there's a year, keeps track of the years, and it tells you what reinforcements. You also have your sheet of paper, your player's age. There's a bunch of different player's age that come with the game, and it'll tell you, based on the year, what reinforcements for blue, what reinforcements for red. And as you get later on, by the way, because of Vietnamization, starting in 1969, you start withdrawing U.S. forces as well, so you have to be aware of that. It is skipped on the first turn. I'm not going to go deep into it because it's pretty simple. You follow the sequence of play. It's listed on there. It'd be just like you would imagine. You're adding forces to the board. You're moving around some of the ones that were in the body count box. You're moving them over to the Deadpool box, things like that. So after you do the reinforcements, which you do skip on turn 1, like I said, so if you're just starting a game, you don't even do that. You go on to the hand refill phase. Now, each side, red and blue, has a deck of cards, and you prep those cards at the beginning of your game, and you go ahead and you're going to draw 5 from it. And during that turn or year, and there's 2 types of turns, it can get a little confusing. Once you play, you're not going to be confused. There's the big turn, which is the whole year, and then there's what are called card turns. So each side draws their 5 cards. You go ahead and you have your 5 cards. You're going to be able to play 4 of them during your turn. Now how it works is, starting with red, you take turns playing cards. And you play 4 cards total. So like I mentioned, that'll be, so each person will have, so red will have a card turn, blue will, back and forth until each has played 4, and then that completes the year and the total turn, like the big turn. Now, by playing cards, is you get your cards, oops, the camera, and so say I drew and I decide to play. I'm the blue player, it's my turn now, and I'm playing McNamara's Fence. What happens is I get the RPs up in this corner. So this number up in the top left corner are the resource points, RPs. I get 4. And then with those 4 RPs, I can do a variety of different actions. And this is where the game really shines. It feels like a sandbox. You have so many different options, so many different things you can do. You never feel like you have enough RPs to do all of them, but you do have a lot of options. And if a card has an event, sometimes it'll just tell you to do something. It'll say you can save it for a reason, whatever. This one is an event. As you can see, it costs 1 RP. So you don't get it automatically. You get the 4 RPs automatically from playing this card, but then you have to spend 1 RP. And then it'll tell you what you can do there. With those RPs, in addition to buying whatever action on the card, if there is one, depending on the player, you can do different things. First of all, the blue player can conduct bombing missions. Now that's actually 0 RP cost. But if you look down here, there's an airbase box. As the US player, you have counters, and it'll tell you how many bombers you get at the beginning of a year. You can send those on bombing missions to attack different provinces of NVA troops. More troops there are, more damage you're going to cause. You can buy the event printed on the card. You can mobilize all friendly units in one province. So what that means is, generally how it works is, say I'm the blue here, I want to spend an RP, I have these troops in Darlik, and I would like to reinforce down here in Kanwa. Well, first of all, with stacking limits, I'm not going to move everybody, but I may say, okay, so I spend 1 RP, I mobilize Darlik, and I'll be able to move a couple infantry over, and I can move them down to Kanwa here. That would be mobilizing a province. There are some special rules with movement. For instance, when you are moving Arvin forces, they actually have trouble moving. So what you do is when you roll your die, we don't roll normally for movement, unless you have Arvin. So say I did mobilize Darlik, and I actually wanted to move over to Quang Ngai province. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 3. They have a movement of 6. Left side of the counter is their strength, combat strength, and right side is movement. I didn't really zoom in on the counters to show you guys, but it's pretty standard stuff here. Let's kind of look. I'll quick show that before I go any farther, just so you guys can see that, how it works. So with the different units here, you're going to see these are different combat units, obviously. You've got, U.S., you've got ARVN, so South Vietnam. Now, infantry is either untried, or if you flip it over, veteran. Generally what it is they're untried, and if they survive a battle, they may, depending on how many enemy troops there were, switch over to veteran. There's artillery, which is considered an asset, which it adds. So say I had a battle with this NVA infantry and this asset here, NVA artillery, and I had these two blue forces. You'd add the 2 to the 1 there. Assets can't fight alone. They have to be part of with regular infantry. And then here's a Viet Cong counter. So the Viet Cong are hidden for the most part, and then depending on what happens, they get flipped over. And if it's a bad intel, that means that you're looking at rolling on a chart to determine if something bad or good happens to you. Or you might flip over the Viet Cong and it's an actual fighting force, 1-1. So I'm going to cover those guys quick. And there's other forces. There's tanks. The U.S. has a blue water navy, has gunboats. There are air cav that can respond to a fight. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So, all right, so back to movement here. So say we're moving with, like I said, from Darlik to Quang Ngai, and we have these blue forces here. Because there's ARVN, you actually have to roll to determine how many provinces ARVN can move before they may stop. So you might go 1, 2, so 1, 2, 3. So roll D6 here, and yes, it's a huge D6, came with the game. Huge dice came with the game. Roll 4. So he would be able to move up to 4. These two ARVN units move up to 4. 1, 2, 3. So no problem there. It's only 3 away anyway. So they right over to Quang Ngai. No problem. Damn, I keep hitting the camera. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, that's movement. Pretty simple stuff. And you can move. You're not, like I said, there's no zones of control. So you can move anywhere you want. You're not, if you do move through a province containing veteran enemy units, it does cost 1 extra movement point. So you have to be aware of that. But other than that, there's not a whole lot else to movement. It's fairly simple. There are aspects of, okay, you might move. Say I moved in from Darlik to Quan Duc. If I move in there, that Viet Cong may ambush me. Just depends. You choose to ambush. If you're the red player, if you're the bot, it'll be a roll, which we'll cover that in the bot video. All right, that's movement. Conduct a battle round in one province, which I'll dig into that more detail in a minute. So if you already have forces in the province, which I will, like I said, I will cover this in more detail. Kanwa here province, you see, has red forces and blue forces in it. You could spend 1 RP to engage in a battle there. Attempt PC change in one province. So what that would be is, whether you're the red or the blue, doesn't matter. You want to be in a province that has no enemy forces, and then you try to conduct a PC change. If you only have, say, if you have U.S. forces but no ARVN, it's going to be harder. You're going to have to roll a die. If you have ARVN forces, it's going to be automatic. And then same thing in North Vietnam. If you only have NVA, the red, it's going to be harder than if you also have Viet Cong there. It's going to be a lot easier. So, blue, let's see, attempt to pacify one province. So, in addition to removing the control flags for the red, for the blue, you can also attempt to pacify a province, which then you put a blue flag on. Like I said, you don't need to put blue flags on all provinces that don't have red flags. It's not how the game works. By default, the provinces are controlled by the blue unless there's a red flag there. But with the blue, they're pacified, which pacifying a province, that helps at the end of the game when you look at the ARVN forces in the body count box, because it helps deal with the fact whether there's going to be a coup or not. So if you're the South Vietnamese player and you are suffering a lot of losses of ARVN troops, you're going to want to pacify more provinces, because then it's going to help you prevent a coup from occurring, which was really going to hurt you as a blue player. And the last thing you can do on a turn is you can save RPs to the stockpile. So there is basically the resource points you collect. So remember we had, say, with our guy, we got 4. Say we did 3 actions, we spent 3 RPs, we have 1 left, and we're not really sure if we want to do anything yet, but we have 0 RPs in the stockpile. You can save 1 each turn, each card turn, you can save 1, and you're always going to start with some RPs in the stockpile as well. So you go ahead and you could save 1, so that way you know, hey, if something comes up in the future, I can use that. At the same time, say you have 4 RPs in the stockpile. You can actually, during each card turn, you can spend 1 from your stockpile. So say I had 4 in there, and I use these 4 up. I use 4 actions, and I still had something I really wanted to do. I can go ahead and spend 1 of my RP points from the stockpile, and that way I can go ahead and do an extra action. So it's part of the game is juggling the RPs. Not just what you get from your card, but then turn to turn and trying to save some for the future. All right, let's go ahead and, so we went through, that's the abbreviated sequence of play. Let's go ahead and dive into battles. All right, let's look at battles here. So now we're going to simulate a battle that's occurring in the Kanwa province here. So we have red forces and blue forces. Battles are not that complicated. There's a sequence of play you're going to follow, and then it'll help determine kind of what you can and can't do. So, actually, let me set this guy right here, just kind of give you guys an example of something during play here. So, say this battle is red is attacking blue. So it's red's turn. They're spending an RP. They're engaging in battle. Starting off, defenders may try to evade. Now, the more units you have, the harder it's going to be to evade. And here's a chart here. It's on the board, nice and easy. We're not going to evade. As a blue force, we want to fight it out. Even though we are technically outnumbered here, we're going to try to fight. Second, you reveal any concealed VC units. Obviously, there are no Viet Cong in that province. You don't see in the VC unit to be here, concealed VC. Nope, we're not going to worry about that. 3, if no defending units remain in the battle, cancel battle sequence. Attacker does not spend the RP. So say I was like, I'm evading, I'm getting out of here. And I was successfully evaded, and I was able to retreat, and I retreated wherever I retreated to. They would then get their RP back. They don't actually spend an RP because the battle never occurred. So that's kind of nice as the attacker. Even though it seems like you're committing to a battle, if the defender evades, you may not actually lose an RP. So you basically scared them away without a battle occurring. If blue is attacking, air and naval units may react. Now, what that means is reaction. I didn't really talk about this for the units, but you can see the blue/US, Blue Water Navy right here, that unit. See how the movement, I talked about movement, the 8 is in parentheses. That means he can react. Now, there are air units, talked about air cav, which I'll show you right here, has a 3 in parentheses, and then that Blue Water Navy has an 8. So what that means is if there's a battle nearby, they can react. Now, what you check first is if blue is attacking, they can react before the battle occurs. So the first round of battle, which battles may be made up of multiple rounds, say I was attacking, I had Air Cav and Bin Thuan, and then we're having this battle here. If I was blue attacking, I could actually have him react and join me in the province before the battle even occurs. Now, as a defender, though, or blue defending, the reaction occurs after the first battle round. So just so you're aware that these units exist that can react to battle. The North does not have those forces. It's only the blue side. Excuse me, the red doesn't have those forces. Only the blue has them. So, all right. So with reaction here, blue is not attacking. This is red attacking, so we can't reinforce yet, or excuse me, react yet. Reinforce is a separate action, so we can't react yet. Now we go ahead, each player adds factors. You roll the die, consult the battle table. Now, there are response cards. So what you can do in the game, the regular game, you'll have your response cards you can play. And then in the solo game, you'll draw a random one each turn. And then to see what happens. So the response cards could be something like this. First of all, they'll say response on them. So you might say, All right, as the blue player, say I have this one in my deck. I'm going to play this response card before the battle. You can read it here. Adds +1 or -1 to any die roll you make after you see the result. You may not alter bush events. So I might say, I'm going to need all the help I can get in this battle, so I'm playing that one. And now, maybe the red player doesn't have one to play. The one they're playing is not appropriate to this. Whatever the case may be. So as the blue player, I'm playing Dinky Dow as my response, which I'm going to add +1 or -1 to any die roll you make after you see the result. All right, so each player adds factors, rolls a die, consults the battle table. So in this case, we're going to look at the factors, which we talked about. So for the red force, they're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8. For the blue force, I only have 4. And then I'll be able to add 1 to my die roll as well. Go ahead and you roll the old 2d6 here. Or, well, you roll 1 for each side. So obviously, red dies red, dies blue. Go ahead and roll. Oh, that was awful. Awful. So, you can't see what I got here, but yeah, I rolled a 1 for the blue, 5 for the red. So let's go ahead and look back down here. Now, what does that mean, you might say? I'll tell you, it's not good. So for the red, 2, 4, 6, 8, plus 5, so 13, and blue is 5 total. And there is a battle table, and it's printed, I believe it's on the card here, but it's also right on the board. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move over to the board here, and we're going to look at the battle table. Now, with our 5 for blue, you look, red has their own side, blue has their own side, unless it's towards the end of the game, like I think it's 1973 and later, then you don't use the red side anymore. But most of the games you're going to play, you're going to use the separate sides. So for blue, we had a 5, which 5 means R. R, target must either lose 1 RP or 1 SRP or eliminate 1 unit. So right now you might, so basically red has a choice then. Red can either spend an RP from, if they have any current RPs, it's their turn, they're attacking, so they have some. They could use one of their stockpile RPs, or they could say, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to take a loss of a unit. Now, strategically, for the game, you're probably going to want to spend an RP or an SRP. It's probably going to make more sense than losing a unit, because like I said before, casualties really hurt you in this game. So we're going to say for that, with the R, okay, they go ahead and they spend an RP, so their stockpile, from their stockpile, it goes down by 1. All right, now we look at the red. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, plus 5, 13. Let's see, red, 13. 2 losses, which unfortunately, so the number 2 would be 2 units are eliminated. That is both defending units. So both of them are going to be put in the body count box, which it's right up there. So both those units are put in the body count box. Not good at all for the blue player, which means they're going to win the battle. Now what you can do is if you go down, it says promote untried infantry. Now in this particular battle, we had all veterans, and both sides were actually all veterans. Maybe I should have set the battle up a little differently. That's okay. So imagine if 2 of these had been untried instead. Obviously wouldn't have had quite the same result, but just bear with me here. So say they win and they eliminated 2 units, and they have 2 veterans and 2 untried. Well, because they fought against 2 blue units, they can promote up to 2 of their own units, which both of these, what do you know, go from untried to veteran. So going into battles is, while they're very dangerous and you don't want to lose a lot of units, it's good to participate in battles because it's just going to make your forces that much stronger. They're automatically going to promote to veteran as long as they're fighting the same amount of enemy forces. So, all right, if blue is defending, now this is where, in this scenario, blue is defending, air or naval units may react, but both red and blue units must be present. So what that means is, because he eliminated both the blue units, we can't react. So this blue water navy can't come flying in. The air cav can't come sailing in. It can't come sailing in. The air cav can't come flying in, saying, hey, we're going to help out here in this battle. It's too late. Blue is already eliminated. I forgot to do my dinky dow, didn't I? +1. So That wouldn't have mattered, I guess. My 5 was still the same. Anyway, 5 would have became a 6, would have been the same result on the chart. So, FYI. Okay. Now, another thing you can do, though, so at the end, the last thing, defender may reinforce from adjacent provinces by paying 1 SRP per province. Ambushes are permitted. No reinforcing by sea. Skip if there are no defending survivors. So again, because there's no defenders, we can't do anything. But say there had been say we had the battle had gone a little differently, and 1 U.S. force had survived. This could be totally different, because what we could do then is we could say, all right, this Blue Water Navy is going to react. The Air Cav will react. And then right here in Darlic, I have a significant amount of blue forces. I'm going to spend 1 RP from my stockpile, and I'm going to go ahead and move. I'm going to move both these U.S. veterans, puts it at 3 infantry, and I can bring 1 more infantry in, because each side can have up to 4 infantry stack as a stacking limit. Now, if battle went to round 2, Red might second guess, because instead of being outnumbering the defending forces heavily, 2, 4, 6, 8, now we're looking at 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So now they're outnumbered with combat strength. That shows an example of, although even the first round of combat may be really difficult for the blue, they can quickly react and reinforce. Now, the Reds can also do reinforce. They just don't have any reactionary forces. They don't have any forces that can, any Blue Water Navy, Air Cav, nothing like that. So they can't do the react, but they can do the reinforce from an adjacent province. And yeah, that's combat. All right, now just to cover a couple little things that I haven't talked about yet. For instance, talk about ambushes. So ambushes or raids. So a raid would be where if you use the raid ability from a card, or if on the solitaire, the bot raids, what will happen is any Viet Cong unit can move into an adjacent province, conduct a raid, and it moves back. Really, it doesn't even move. You just roll on the raid chart. We have a little raid chart down here. Show you guys right there. Ambush and raid. And so you go ahead and raid. You roll. Simple. Very simple. 1d6. If you get a 5 or 6, D is defending unit eliminated. Very simple. Another thing you can do are ambushes. So say up here, we have Toyen Duc province, has a couple U.S. forces, or blue forces, I should say. And they're going to move into Con Hoa, where the Viet Cong is. Now they go ahead and move into that province, and say, either if it's a bot chooses to, or the red player decides to ambush. Go ahead and flip her over. Now we also do, so we have to see the unit, so we flip it over to reveal it, because if it had been a bad intel, you roll on the bad intel chart. But this is a VC unit, and it's a regular VC unit. So we go back down to our little chart down here for ambushes and raids. You can see it down here. Roll a 1d6, and you can see there's VC and VC plus. VC is that 1-1 VC that you see there. A VC plus would be if you flip them over, and it was this 2-1 VC here. So it's a little bit of a more elite one. Go ahead and roll. Have the result an A. Ambushing unit eliminated. Basically means you're gonna lose that VC. Or 4, 5, 6, or 5, 6 defending unit eliminated. So it's kind of that representing the asymmetric warfare, guerrilla warfare style of what they can do. We also talked a little bit about bombing. So you have a province with bombing that you want to bomb as the blue player. You have your units here, your bombers. What happens is you have a bomb, say, let me set this up quick. So Quang Ngai, let's say, has some red forces here. You want to bomb them. I don't know, go ahead and move the camera up a little bit so you guys can actually see. All right. So you want to go ahead and bomb them in Quang Ngai. The cost is free. You play one of your counters, you set it in there. And what you're going to do is you're going to roll on this table, the bomber attack table down here, depending on how many units are in that province, which in this case there are 3 red units. You roll a 1d6. Look across here, we're under 3 units. On a 1, 2, or 3, they're going to suffer a loss. So you're going to eliminate 1 unit. You can also either miss, you can cause, the 1R, which remember R's mean they can spend a resource point or lose a unit, up to them. And then when he's done with that, the bombing mission, you keep him there for that card turn, you flip him over. It shows that he's dropped his bombs. Keep him there for the rest of that 1 card turn. And then when he's done with this card turn, put him back in the airbase box, but you leave him flipped over to show that he needs to be refueled Bombers are automatically refueled at the end of a year, so you can use each bomber once, unless you have the card. There's a card, at least one card event that does allow you to refuel them in the middle of a card turn, or in the middle of a turn. All right, hopefully that showed you guys the game without going into too big a detail. You know, I don't like to cover every single rule in my tutorial videos. I'll just give you guys a general idea how the game plays. Hopefully that covered everything. We covered the sequence of play. We covered how to engage in a battle. I told you guys really the point of the game, right, is the doves and the hawks. Red player collecting doves, blue player collecting hawks, and the blue player trying to stop this infiltration of the red player all over South Vietnam. There's no front lines in this game. It's going to be all over the place. You're going to be fighting, whether you're fighting down here in the south of Vietnam or the north side, or right in the middle, wherever, everywhere. I didn't cover Laos and Cambodia, but basically what that is that, like I said, there are government and rebel forces, and if one side or the other is completely eliminated, you have to be careful. You have to spend RPs to prop them up. If you don't spend RPs to prop them up, then they're going to collapse, and you're going to lose access to that area. And I believe it causes doves or I don't know if it causes hawks or not. Maybe it does. Either doves or hawks, depending on which side loses. Right? If the rebels are eliminated or if the government forces are eliminated. Let's see here. Yeah, I can look at the end game kind of for a second here. I think I covered it a little bit, but let me dig into a little bit more. So what I'm talking about is the fact that at the end of a game, say at the end of a year, and you say this is the end of the year you've chosen, at the end of this year, you're done. What you're going to do is you're going to count up, amongst other things. Actually, let me get this sheet out here so we can go through it one by one. So they call it the interphase summary. So in between every year, so say you've had your 4 card turns and now you're going on to the end of the year, you do what's called the interphase summary. The political will is where the doves and hawks are, and that's when you're going to adjust it. If you have campaign cards, you're going to see if those were completed or not. And I didn't really go into them, but I can show you guys. So the blue, red both have campaign cards, and there's grand campaign cards. The red has some grand campaign cards as well. And what they'll be is kind of special. So say Quezon, campaign zone 1. You may play, and it's a campaign card that you would have drawn at the beginning of your turn. You can choose whether or not to do them. There's one for each of the zones, 1, 2, 3, 4, because the map is broken up into 4 different zones. You can see the red line differentiates between zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4. I didn't go into it because it's not that complicated. Like, that's why I didn't cover them very well, because frankly, as soon as you know how to run the game, you can start implementing things like campaign cards. It's very simple. So the end of the turn here, we talk about campaign cards there. Check for collapse in Laos and Cambodia. Pay 3 stockpile avoidance points, resource points, stockpile resource points to avoid a collapse. So like I said, if a faction collapses, whether it's the government or the rebels, which means none of their units are on the board anymore, you have to pay 3. If you don't pay 3, the faction collapses, and then you add either 3 hawks or 3 doves, depending on which side collapsed, which is greatly going to help the other guy. All right, now you adjust political will in the game track. If it's 1969 or later, you add 1 dove. And I suppose I can actually show you guys, can't I? Let me pause it for a second while I zoom in on the dove and hawk track. All right, so over here, you can see there's a year track, and then here's a game track, and this is where you keep track of the different hawk, dove, stockpile, resource points, etc. So right now, for instance, the game is at 3. The hawk, it's on hawk, which you can switch from hawk to dove. Right now it's on hawk on 3. So that would technically be -3. As it goes up or down for hawk, it switches over to dove and goes up for dove. All right, adjust political will on the game track. So this is the game track, and this is the political will marker. +1 dove if it's 69 or later, 1969 or later. +1 dove for every U.S., international force, or ROC unit in the body count box. So here's where I was saying that what units are damaged, or what units are killed, can really hurt you. So say body count box, there's none in there right now, so let's put some in there. We have these 3. So there's 3 U.S. forces. So yes, the blue side includes the green, but for this particular aspect, we're just looking at the blue. So blue units, there's 3. So that means you go ahead and +1 dove for every one of those. So that's 3. So because we're at 3 hawk, it would drop to 2 to 1 to 0. So now it's at 0. Still stays hawk, I believe. Yes, if it's equal or less than 0, it's hawk. So we're at 0 now. Not good. Then you go ahead, not good for the blue player, good for the red though. +1 dove if the body in the body count box, the number of red units is equal or less than the number of blue units. So, you're gonna check, okay, red units. It's all the red controlled units, which are not include Viet Cong, but it does include the red banded from, in this case, I believe these are the Laos units. Yep, the Laos rebels. So you might look and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I added a bunch in there, so okay, well, they don't succeed there. So +1 extra dove. So right now you say there's a lot more blue units in the body count box than red. That's 1 extra dove, which means the hawk marker switches over to dove and goes up to 1. Count red flag provinces in South Vietnam. So remember I talked about those provinces that have that red flag. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 5 up there. So 5. If you had 7, at least 7 would be 1 dove. 7 to 8 is 1 dove. 9 to 10 is 2 doves, etc. It goes up from there. So fortunately, actually, for the provinces, they don't have to get any doves for. The blue players isn't going to suffer any damage there. You then check for ARVN stability, which is Republic of Vietnam, South Vietnam stability. You subtract pacified provinces from ARVN units in the body count box. So right now, and this is an extreme example, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 ARVN units in the body count box here. We only have 4 pacified provinces, which is, remember, these blue flags. So we have 5, a shortage of 5. Now, you look over to the SRPs here. We actually have 0. So that means the blue player, that means the Republic of South Vietnam government is going to collapse. What that does is that adds 3 doves. So 1, 2, 3. You flip all ARVN on the board to untried. So all these guys out here, say over here, we have some veteran ARVN forces. Nope, they all flip over to untried, to their weaker side. ARVN go to Saigon, and then you set the blue SRPs to 0, no matter what, which we were already at 0 anyway. So then all the ARVN units are going to end up into Saigon, which that would hurt blue player quite a bit. Then you check for victory. So in this case, for instance, say this was the end of 1967. And now we're at 4 dove is the score. At the end of 1967, the year-end goal was 0. Oops, hopefully, there we go. The year-end goal was 0. So because we're at 4 dove, that means the red player is going to win. So if the game ended now, the red player would win. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick tutorial of Hearts and Minds, 3rd edition from Compass Games. The game is a lot of fun to play. It's pretty easy to play once you're rolling. I know it maybe looks a little complicated right now. I got counters all over the place, but that's just from showing you guys the game. In reality, it is not a difficult game to learn. The rulebook is not that large. It plays very well. And in my next video, I'll show you guys the solo option, show you how the bot works, and after that, I'll show you guys actual playthrough video. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.